And now it's my great pleasure to turn things over to another one of our DePaul's graduate students, Tenen Gite, who will serve as our moderator for this first morning's plenary session.
Thank you very much, Patricia. I am Tenen Gite. I am an international student from the Gambia, so I apologize in advance for the accent, in case you don't understand.
No apologies necessary.
Yes, I am a graduate student with DePaul, and I'm currently studying applied diplomacy. I've not declared a concentration yet, but I'm in the School of Applied Diplomacy, and I'm new to Chicago. I've been in the US for 2 years, and now I was in Missouri and moved to Chicago about 3 months ago, and I'm happy to be here. And the second presenter today is Colleen McSwiggin. Colleen McSwiggin is the chemistry lab manager at Mount St. Joseph University. Last year, the Sisters of Charity of Cincinnati awarded her the congregation's highest honor, the Elizabeth Ann Sutton Award, in recognition of her collaborative projects, including facilitating the University Sustainability Committee, initiating the Beyond the Bean recycling program and semi-annual electronics recycling days, also organizing a sustainability expo career fair, and creating sustainability goals for the university, as well as coordinating campus efforts for recognition as a Laudato, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, correct me if I am, Laudato Si community by the diocese. I would like to take the time to say welcome to the program, and I open the floor to you.
So from where Sister CJ was talking about, if you move across the street to the west from where Earth Connection is, you'll actually be at the campus of Mount St. Joe, which is where I'm the chemistry lab manager and the chair of the Sustainability Committee. My talk today will tell you a little bit more, well, actually a lot more, about the sustainable things that we've been doing to make our campus a little greener. So the College of Mount St. Joseph was founded in 1920 across the street from where the current campus is. So this is actually our centennial year, although our celebration plans have changed a little bit because of COVID. We changed our name to Mount St. Joseph University a few years ago. The current campus, with the exception of a few buildings, was built in the early 1960s. And even though sustainability wasn't a thing, so to speak, at that point in time, in some ways sustainability was built into the campus, especially because we had a lot of trees that were planted when the campus buildings themselves were finished. But then since energy was cheap, and because we didn't understand the implications of fossil fuel use at that point, other things were very much not sustainable, such as single pane windows with aluminum frames, not a lot of insulation in the walls, not a lot of insulation in the roofs. So things were very not energy efficient for a while. And this is actually a picture of our quad. Luckily, the administration of Mount St. Joe is very supportive of our sustainability efforts, though, because they make economic sense for the university, but also because they understand the moral implications of not doing anything to mitigate climate change. Because of that, the university signed the St. Francis Pledge in 2012. The Sustainability Committee, which was originally called the Environmental Action Committee, but then was renamed to encompass all three parts of sustainability. The Sustainability Committee was formed in 2009, and we applied for and were awarded Laudato Si recognition from the Archdiocese, as Sister CJ mentioned earlier, that the Sisters of Charity also received in 2018. This past April, for Earth Day, our president, Dr. Williams, who you can see there in the picture on the far right, he pledged to plant 5 trees on campus by the end of the year in recognition of 5 years of Laudato Si. The administration also supported our membership in Green Umbrella, which Sister CJ also mentioned is an umbrella organization, as you can tell by its name, of other sustainability organizations in the area. And that includes everything from local parks to sustainable agriculture co-ops, sort of any kind of organization that has a connection in one way or another to sustainability. The administration also wanted to formalize our commitment to sustainability, so they adopted the Sustainability Position Statement in 2017, which basically states that we will take sustainability into account for our daily processes and then also for our long-term plans for the campus community. The Sustainability Committee plays a role in making sure that those considerations actually take place. Sometimes they're still kind of, the administration's still sort of getting used to the idea of, hey, we ought to talk to the committee before we do something, but they're getting there. We focus on 5 areas though. 2 of these, infrastructure and utilities, which would be the buildings and then the systems in the buildings, are fairly intertwined. Landscape, we consider the areas outside of the buildings, which also include sidewalks, patios, other hardscape surfaces. And then processes are how we do things at the Mount. Education is ways that we teach others about sustainability, both on campus and off campus. And we feel that's especially important right now so that people understand climate change and how it's affecting the world. Now I'm going to go into a little bit about each of these areas. So up first is infrastructure. We are a small university. We only have about 2,000 students, and that includes undergrad through doctoral. But for the size of our student body, I think we actually have a fairly large campus. We have 12 buildings plus a parking garage next to our stadium. You can see the stadium there in the lower right-hand part of the picture. We have 4 homes on the edge of the main campus. We have 2 ball fields that you can't even see in this picture that are down the hill from campus. And then we have a decent amount of forested land around campus there. You can kind of see on the lower left-hand kind of side of that picture. And then we actually rent a facility that you can't see again about a mile north of the main campus for our Health Sciences Center. If you look on the map up on that far left-hand corner, you'll see the Sisters of Charity Mother House. And kind of next to that at the corner of Bender and Delhi, if you guys can read that, is where the solar panels are that Sister CJ mentioned, and the geothermal. And then if you look down by where the stadium is, there's 2 small buildings, and you can see where Earth Connection is labeled right there. Actually, looks like they labeled Sister Winnie's house next to Earth Connection, but it's in that area. And then the main campus is sort of that center area of the picture to the southwest of those 2 main roads, Delhi Pike and Neeb Road. And all of the woods there on the lower left part of the photo belong to either the Sisters of Charity, the Mount, or Western Wildlife Corridor, which is a local conservation nonprofit that we sometimes help with. All told, we have more than 87 acres of land and almost 700,000 square feet of building space on the main campus. And as I mentioned earlier, when the campus was built in the 1960s, there were some aspects that, looking back, weren't very sustainable. This led to some, what I would call, unusual infrastructure upgrades that had to be done on campus. And one of the biggest issues that had to be fixed was the way that the campus buildings were heated. Originally, the campus buildings were heated with steam that was pumped from pipes at a plant at the Mother House. And you can see there on that picture on the left, you can see the smokestack from that plant. And the pipes ran under the Mother House property, under the road, under the Mount's main parking lot, and into the buildings where the steam circulated in loops, and then radiant heat would heat the buildings. Because the steam was coming from so far away, and because it's not the most efficient form of energy, the decision was made in the early 2000s to cap off the steam line. To prepare for that, there needed to be a lot of upgrades on campus itself. So between 2004 and 2008, over $3 million was spent to install electric chillers, new boilers, a hot water heat exchanger, and upgrades had to be done to the natural gas piping system as well. Now, $3 million seems like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. However, before the steam was capped off, just the steam, not counting electric or natural gas or anything else, just the steam cost about $800,000 a year. When it was capped off, our electric and our natural gas totals went up, combined total $100,000 a year. So just capping off the steam saved us $700,000 every year. So the return on investment for that was about 5 years. So very good investment. And then to put things in perspective, because we could make further upgrades, because we were saving $700,000 a year, we were able to use those savings for other upgrades around campus. And we now pay only about $800,000 total for water, gas, electric, and all of our trash and recycling. So again, very good investment. On the right side of the slide, you can also see another sort of unusual infrastructure upgrade. That's a slide from Google Earth, and that's the green roof that's on top of our library. This was installed in 2008 as a way to decrease the heating and cooling costs for the library because, again, there wasn't much insulation on the top, and to increase the vegetation and decrease the amount of rainwater runoff on campus. So the white part there that spells out MSJ is actually reflective tiles, and the grayish parts sort of around that are the plant trays that include different species of sedum, and it's in a very porous soil, so it can hold a lot of water when it does rain. And incidentally, if you fly into or out of the greater Cincinnati CVG airport, which ironically is across the river in Kentucky, not in Ohio, if you're on the right flight path, you can fly right over the mount, and it's very easy to spot us because we spell it out for you on the top of our library. We've also done a lot of common utility and infrastructure upgrades that I'm sure a lot of other organizations have done here, including low flush toilets, switching to energy efficient appliances, upgrading hoods in our dining halls, an LED lighting conversion, window upgrades, again from like single pane to double pane with insulated frames, upgraded thermostats, insulation for hot water pipes, adding valves at different points in the water system around campus, because previously if there was an issue just in one area, the entire system would have to be shut down, the entire system would have to be drained. So now we can just shut down small portions of it. We've also installed 3 water bottle filling stations around campus, and in just the first year we saved the equivalent of 29,000 disposable bottles of water. So that, again, was a good call on our part. And then we've installed motion sensors in the lights, especially in meeting rooms and other large areas where people won't necessarily turn them off at the end because they just assume somebody else will take care of that. And then we use sustainable materials when we can, sort of like Sister CJ mentioned for Earth Connection. So that carpeting there is actually made from recycled water bottles. So the newest building on our campus is our Centennial Fieldhouse, which you can see, these are actually computer generated pictures from the design plans at the very beginning. I wasn't able to take any sort of updated things because we're not totally there yet, but we're getting close. And the Fieldhouse was supposed to open last month, again, Centennial Fieldhouse, but again, COVID sort of had other plans. So it's supposed to open now in December. One of the things that our committee was the most happy about for this field house was that a lot of sustainability upgrades were built into the plans for this. And to be honest, we didn't even have to advocate for that. The designers said, this is all the things we could do. And the Mount kind of said, okay, let's figure out how to pay for these. So for instance, in the locker rooms, there will be instantaneous hot water heaters. So that eliminates a lot of the piping because the water can come into the bathroom area in one pipe before being split into the cold water and the water that will go into the hot water tank. Then that eliminates the need for hot water tank storage areas. So you don't waste the energy trying to keep a large amount of water up at a higher temperature just whenever it may need to be used. And then because the tanks are so close to where the water is used, there's a lot of less heat lost through the pipes just because it does not have as far to go. The shower heads in the locker rooms are also high efficiency, and then we also have low flush toilets in all of those too. There are a few things that that are in the rec center that will help decrease the amount of air, because that's actually one of the biggest energy losses, either heating air that has to come in to be cooled or trying to cool down air that comes in that's hot to begin with. So we've got bipolar ionization air treatment that helps filter out the particles in the air, so it keeps it healthier. There's a monitoring system that only kicks on when the carbon dioxide levels get to a certain point. And then there's an energy recovery unit that crosses the airflow of the incoming and outgoing air, so that the air from the inside, as it's going outside, if it's warm already and it's a cold day outside, it warms some of the cold air coming in so that you don't have to raise the temperature as far once that cold air gets inside the building. And then the reverse is the same for the summer, where if there's air that's been air conditioned inside, that it crosses the warm air coming in from the outside and cools that air down to an extent. There's also advanced automation built in so that buildings and grounds can program all of the thermostats, lights, et cetera, for whatever the use of the rec center will be on a weekly basis. So if there's a week when the entire campus is closed, they can just shut everything down. We also have some of the more basic sustainability upgrades in the field house. So improved insulation, LED lights, occupancy controls, and then low E-glass as well. We will also have 2 level 2 electric chargers out front, which is kind of the left side of that picture underneath where the MSJ logo is. So we can charge 4 electric cars at a time, and those will be charged within 2 to 3 hours. There's also plans, as you can kind of see in the picture there on the left, plans for a 532 kilowatt solar array on the top of the rec center. Again, those plans have sort of temporarily been put on hold because of COVID, because we sort of hit a budget crunch this year. But that's something that's easily taken care of once we get the funding for it. There's a standing seam roof, so there's a great place to clamp all of those solar panels on when we're ready to do that. So on to landscaping. As I stated at the beginning of this talk, when the campus was built in the 1960s, there were lots of trees planted around campus. And that was actually by design, because the entire campus was supposed to be a living biology laboratory. So we had many specimen trees planted, including some species that were pretty exotic for Cincinnati, including ginkgos, metasequoias, which are also known as dawn redwoods, Japanese maples, and then other non-native species. And then we also have our native species as well, such as oaks, maples, etc. But unfortunately, now that it's almost 60 years on, since many of those were planted, a lot of them are having just are reaching the end of their life cycles. So some of them are having to be taken out because of safety issues, branches breaking, rot in the middle, and things like that. We actually lost a lot of ash trees because of the emerald ash borer. Some are being treated, but some sort of were too far gone before we could get to that point. And then also just other diseases along the way, like we lost a lot of elm trees, way back in the 80s or 90s, whenever Dutch elm came through. When we do have to take a tree out, we are now trying to replace them whenever possible with native species. But there are a few exceptions. For instance, in the middle of the quad, we still have a metasequoia and ginkgo tree, and then we're trying to add a couple other things so that we can actually create a dinosaur garden. So flora that would have been around at the time of the dinosaurs during the Cretaceous period. We also do have one rain garden on campus, which you can see there on the right side of the slide. It's got Baptisia, black-eyed Susans, some coneflowers, other things I can't remember right now. But in the middle of the summer, it looks really nice. It's got a lot of kind of purples and blues and yellows and a couple of pinks in there too. The photo on the left corner there shows the sustainable hardscape that was put in, I want to say it was about 2011. So sort of where the student is sitting there kind of on the steps, and then where the tables are on the lower level, all of that is permeable pavers. So that soaks in the rainwater. It's kind of got a gravel mixture almost underneath it, gravel and sand, so that when rainwater comes down, it goes there instead of running off into our storm sewers, because we do have some issues with storm sewer overflows here in Cincinnati. We actually did a demo for that, a demonstration for one of our Earth Day events, and we dumped over a 55-gallon just barrel full of water, and the whole thing was absorbed in the pavers within about 5 seconds. It was really impressive. It was almost like something out of, I don't know, like Terminator 2 with the Mercury guy. Like everything just soaked in. It was like, whoa. It was really cool. And then on to process changes for how we do things at Mount St. Joe. So along the way, and many of these were even before I came to Mount St. Joe, there have been things that have been implemented on the campus to help lessen our carbon footprint. Many of these things are sort of accidental sustainability upgrades, because a lot of it was done just to save money along the way. But some were done, specifically with the idea of trying to save the earth here. So we now have recycling of ink and toner cartridges. We recycle electronics, batteries, and then we do the typical cardboard, plastic, paper bottle, plastic, paper, and cans. And then we buy local in bulk and fair trade whenever we can. We try to buy greener supplies, especially for things that need to be used for janitorial, cleaning needs. And then we try to buy things with less packaging when possible. We avoid printing things in bulk if we can just send an email or put a couple things up on bulletin boards instead. And then probably about 10 years ago, the fiscal operations went to all paperless if at all possible. So all of the students receive their bills for their room and board electronically, and then all paychecks are paid electronically as well. And we don't actually get even just a pay stub, that's paper. Specific areas and departments have also made sustainable upgrades on campus. Again, although that was not always the primary reason for them making the change. For instance, the IT department started buying computers with solid state hard drives instead of the hard drives that spin, because they were tired of replacing the fans on all of those computers. They switched to solid state, and that eliminated the fan issue, but then it also saved a lot of energy, because a lot of energy for the kind that where the hard drives spin, a lot of energy is wasted. It's lost in the form of heat, and then it's also lost because you have to have the fans to cool down that spinning disc and things like that. So that eliminated a lot of the energy needs by more than half in most cases. The IT department also switched to mainly laptop computers a few years ago, and that was actually more just because faculty wanted the convenience of being able to take their laptop home, but laptops use less energy than desktops do. So again, that saved us more on our energy bill. When new printers were installed about 10 years ago, all of the printers on campus were made or were picked specifically so that they could print on two sides of paper. And that eliminated a lot of paper, but it was actually done because the IT department was tired of having to go around and fill paper up at all of the different common area printers around campus. So again, not necessarily the reason that something was done, not the primary reason I should say, but sustainability, sort of finds its way into many of the processes in a good way. And then our dining hall went trayless in 2006. You can see a picture of it there on the right. And people no longer had the ability then to put sort of whatever looked good as they were going through the line the first time on their tray. And they could always go back and get seconds if they wanted more. But because people weren't putting things that just looked good at the time, we ended up actually going from 3 55-gallon waste cans to just one every day. And the food services manager estimates that we saved 150 pounds of waste every day. And 150 pounds sounds like a lot, but what's even more is the fact that that adds up to 8 tons of food waste saved every year. And then also related to food services, one of my favorite sustainability stories for campus happened just last year. The committee wanted to look into the possibility of composting the food prep scraps from the dining hall. So I went to go talk to the food services manager, and she said, "Oh, we've already got that covered." They only have about 2 5-gallon buckets worth of scraps every day. So, skins from carrots and the ends of cucumbers and what have you that they don't need. They have a local farmer that actually contacted them and said, "Hey, can I get those scraps?" And the farmer takes those scraps home to his pig, feeds them to the pig, and the pig's name is Bacon, which slightly cruel and unusual, but also very fitting. And another area that had some changes was athletics. About 3 years ago, all of the athletic teams started being provided with refillable water bottles. So that literally has cut down on thousands of disposable plastic bottles. And then they also instituted a no idling policy. And that actually started just because people who were coming to the football and basketball games were complaining and said, "Hey, it's kind of stinky there in the parking lot." So we instituted a no idling policy. So again, sort of an accidental sustainability upgrade. Buildings and grounds. Our landscaping team actually composts yard waste. A lot of that is just leaves, because when they cut the grass now, they just leave the clippings on the grass. And they've also installed what I would call sort of smart sprinklers. You can see that kind of in the bottom middle there. The heads of those sprinklers can be adjusted to sort of do different angles of water shooting out. So a lot of them, if they're facing a water bed or a flower bed, the water will come out just for 180 degrees of that, and it won't be spraying the whole 360 degrees. Won't be losing water on sidewalks or parking lots, things like that. And then those are also set to go off a little bit before dawn so that the water will have time to soak in, and then we'll have less evaporation of that water. Buildings and Grounds also donated furniture over the years to Habitat for Humanity. So things like file cabinets, desks, bookcases. And then we actually had, I think it was 2 years ago, there were 2 dorm rooms that were completely full of unused mattresses. For whatever reason, they bought mattresses thinking they were going to need to have them around on hand or something. And they needed to now use those dorm rooms. So we actually donated 50 new mattresses to Habitat for Humanity that year. Our mailroom also had sort of another accidental sustainability upgrade the other year. I think it was last year now. We used to get 3 to 5 Amazon deliveries a day, and they would only have 1 to 2 packages each time. And they were usually delivered by contract drivers, so not like an established route. And they never knew where to bring those packages on campus. And there's quite a few places that they could be dropped off. So the head of the mailroom said, "I'm tired of tracking these packages down." He called the Amazon Field Quality Assurance Manager, and then MSJ was added to a dedicated route for both University of Cincinnati and Xavier University. So we're the 3rd place on that route. So we now get 1 Amazon delivery every day with a dozen or so packages. And that saved the mailroom time because, again, they didn't have to go chasing around campus trying to find out where the heck these packages were delivered. But then also that consolidation saved a lot of gas getting the packages to us. The mailroom has also gone all digital for when they are delivering packages on campus. And that has eliminated almost all paper from their operations. And then it's also a more efficient operation too, especially when they're trying to find out, again, where did some package go? They can actually see who signed for it electronically. One of the other processes we've tried to change both on campus and beyond campus, so for the betterment of staff and faculty and things, is to change how people think of waste. So we instituted a Beyond the Bin recycling program. This was inspired by Sister Joyce Richter, who I saw is on the call today. So hi, Joyce. She's actually one of our sustainability committee members. One of the local churches that she attends did a similar program where they collected empty personal care and oral care packaging for recycling through TerraCycle. So we thought, okay, we can do that, but we can kind of take it up a notch and do some other items as well. So once a month, for 1 week a month, from September to May, we have 3 locations on campus where we put a big just sort of storage tote, and then people drop their items in, and we have a different item or different type of item every month. So 1 month we collected school supplies and art supplies for a local teacher supply nonprofit. 1 month we collected shoes for Souls for Souls. 1 month we collected packing material that could be reused, and we gave that to a local independent shipping store, etc. And then though this was mainly started as a way just to increase recycling and reuse for items on campus, like I said, a lot of employees were actually glad to have this because it helped them clear out their homes. But then some of them also too kind of set, they would call and say, well, we didn't even know that that was recyclable. So that's great that we can now keep that out of the landfill. One of the biggest impacts that we've had on processes, again, went beyond campus. And this is our community electronics recycling days. So these were actually started by Sister Martha Walsh, and when she could no longer manage the days just because of health issues, the sustainability committee took over. The company that we work with, Recycle Force, is a nonprofit from Indianapolis, and Sister Martha started working with them because the Sisters of Charity gave Recycle Force a large grant to purchase the piece of equipment that they call the Beast, which is actually sort of the electronic shredder that they use for all of the materials they bring in. Their mission is to help previously incarcerated individuals get job training, get a steady job history to get back on their feet. So we're happy to partner with them, help them with their mission, and then they help us with our mission as well. We've had 17 of these community electronic recycling days since 2012 at various places around Cincinnati. And in that time, we've collected over 300 tons of electronics, which, to put in sort of perspective, is about 42-ish semi-trucks full. And this photo here on the right is actually from the largest event we had at a local high school, where we collected almost 50 tons, which Recycle Force said was a one-day record that they never want to have to break. And that was at Oak Hills High School, and we are very thankful that we actually had the Oak Hills football team, again, football teams coming in handy, to help unload all of the cars that were but those have been very successful. Very proud of those, actually. The last area that the Sustainability Committee works on is education. And some of this, again, happened without our help. Many professors already build sustainability into their own syllabi just because there are so many aspects of the world that tie into sustainability. So you can see just a list of them here. Everything from accounting to sociology and everything in between. Beyond the classroom, we've also had a sustainability faculty learning community. And for that, the faculty members all read the same book on sustainability and had discussions based on the reading, just sort of trying to broaden their minds in some respects and to maybe think about things in a different way. Previous to that, a lot of the sustainability committee members had kind of been seen as tree huggers, so to speak, and we just wanted to kind of get it out there that, hey, it's more than just the environment, that there's also social justice implications for this as well. And then we also have the celebration of teaching and learning. You can see the symbol there on the left. That's an end of the year award ceremony on campus for students, faculty, staff. And we've had 2 different presentations that have tied into sustainability, including one by Sister CJ. And then we also have monthly newsletters, and then we have a Facebook page just to keep everybody up to date on what's going on for events on campus. But then sometimes, especially for the Facebook page, you know, we'll post if there's a community shred day or a community hazardous waste day, just so people in the Mount community know about other resources that are in the Cincinnati area. And then we also try to educate the public at large. So we've had Earth Day events where we've had electric vehicle test drives, which were really fun. I really like the Tesla 3. We did a carry your trash contest where people carried around all of the non-food waste that they created for 1 week. And then they could win prizes if they managed to create the least amount of waste. One year we built a greenhouse out of disposable plastic bottles. This is not our greenhouse because ours was not nearly this pretty, but you get the gist of it. And then we've also had clean power demos. And this, the picture there on the kind of in the middle is actually a solar powered hydrogen cell. And then we've also had 2 film series where we invited the public, The Years of Living Dangerously. They were produced by Showtime, and it's various celebrities and journalists sort of take a closer look at the different causes and effects of climate change, and then also the policies for governments literally around the world that affect climate change, either for good or for bad. And then we've also had 2 green expos on campus where we featured local sustainability organizations and businesses, so that if somebody's interested in, say, putting solar panels on the top of their house or something, they can come to the expo, talk to the organizations, and sort of see what's involved in that and get more information. And then in closing, I'd just like to thank President Williams and the Cabinet, the members of the Sustainability Committee, the faculty and staff of the chemistry and biology departments for when I have to say some days, hey, I'm not going to do any of my actual work today. And then also our dean, Gene Kritzky, who's also the bee guy that Sister CJ mentioned earlier. He's just been very supportive of our work. And then not on this photo or this slide, but I also have to do a shout out to my tech support, AKA my husband, Mike, and my son, Jack. And then Sister Pat, and then CJ, just for inviting me to be part of this conference. I thank you for your time, and I hope that you found at least one thing that you can take home to your school, your parish, your house, to make a sustainable upgrade. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Colleen. I'm sure we found a lot of things to take home today.
Yeah, like there was a laundry list.
Yes, definitely. We also have some questions. This one is for both of you from Professor Ramanath. And she said, I can see there is a lot to celebrate in your efforts, but I'm eager to understand what you identify as your top 3 challenges in sustaining this good work. The journey, I am sure, was not easy, but I want to know more about what you see as the challenges to maintain your vision in the foreseeable future.
I think for me, one of the greatest challenges is, as a country, I think we've lost a sense of the common good. And when we're talking about the environment, as Pope Francis said, it's a common good which belongs to all of us. And so it's necessary to help people to realize that we all have a part to play in safeguarding our planet for future generations. I think, secondly, it's not a priority for a lot of people. And so even though more and more of the catastrophic disasters we are seeing are affecting us in this country, it still doesn't seem to be a priority for a lot of people. And so we have to help to bring about a change of attitude and a realization that what happens to one of us happens to all of us. And third, I think the information portrayed oftentimes by our government, especially, that climate change is a hoax, has to be refuted. Not in an angry kind of way, but we have to offer the kinds of programs that invite people to come and find out for themselves, and then evaluate what can they in their own lives do. And then, even more important, what is it that we can do better together than we can do alone?
Thank you, Sister CJ. Just to add, I think that togetherness has to deal with the globe itself. It's not just an American problem, it's a global issue. And we all have a role to play. It's either we rise together or we sink together. Colleen?
Yeah, so I would just echo the same as what CJ just said. I feel like, especially in America, we've lost that sense of the common good, and it's to our detriment. And a lot of people haven't realized that it's to our detriment yet. So that's very disheartening. However, I am hopeful. So in our chemistry department, one of the classes that one of the chemistry teachers actually teaches is environmental science. And she said last year, when she taught the course, and she's been teaching this for about 10 years, last year was the first year that she didn't have anybody questioning her about climate change. She would usually get pushback saying, well, you know, the scientists don't really know, there's not a consensus, blah, blah, blah. And this time last year, everybody was like, yeah, what can we do about it? So that actually gives me hope that things are heading in the right direction. It might be a little bit slow to get there, but we're getting there. And then I would say one of the biggest challenges we have on the campus is just sometimes turnover. Sometimes we get a really great student who wants to be part of it and is very gung-ho and taking on projects and things like that, but then they graduate. Or we have a faculty or staff member who is, you know, a huge help. It's got great connections to bring students in or what have you. And then either they leave them out for some reason, or their schedule changes so that they take on other responsibilities and they don't have time for the sustainability committee. So just sort of having the continuity on campus is sometimes very frustrating for me, but we still kind of seem to muddle through and get stuff done. So, and I guess that's only 2, but that's kind of my 2 big.
I think, Tanang, what you said is very important, is the understanding that this is a global problem.
Mm-hmm.
But we're having trouble just getting people to realize it's a problem here in this country. But I think ultimately that is our goal. How do we see ourselves as part of the global community? And I will type into the chat a resource for dealing with climate change deniers. It's a delightful book called Cranky Uncle versus Climate Change by Dr. John Cook out of Australia. And he's not only a climate scientist, but he's also a cartoonist. So there are many, many cartoons in the book, which really give you an idea of what's happening. He also he has a wonderful website called skepticalscience.com and lets you use any of his cartoons in your presentations. So I will type that into the chat for people.
Thank you very much. Mary Jo Stein, Sister Mary Jo Stein asks, what is the book that your faculty read on sustainability? I think this is for Colleen.
Yeah, so I actually don't remember the name of it. It's been like 9 years. I totally remember what the cover looks like, but I do not remember the name. I could actually look that up and then email it out, though, when I get back to work on Monday.
Okay, I have one last question. This has to do with the issue of sustainability. How do you get young people to stay passionate? I mean, the ones that you talked about turnover, Colin. How do you get them to stay passionate once they've graduated to continue with the theme of sustainability and being good to the environment?
Some of it's not really anything that I have to do. A lot of them, a perfect example, there's one student who probably graduated from the Mount now 4 years ago, I want to say. And she came in already knowing a lot. And I feel like the more that we can do to sort of open their eyes when they're on the campus, then they just automatically want to continue with that when they go on. So she actually is in a, can't remember if it's a master's or doctoral program in Seattle for sustainable architecture. So that's something where she saw the need. She was just in an art program here at Mount St. Joe. And then when she kind of saw what more she could do with it, she took it to that next level. And the more that we can kind of get open their eyes, I guess here in Cincinnati, they understand how important it is, and then we don't have to do anymore. They take it from there. Somebody else who just graduated last year, so she's going to be an elementary school teacher, and she took on the community garden that I didn't even mention, trying to clean it up where, grows weeds every year and things like that. And she already sees how she can use some of what she learned for that to sort of bring in more Montessori principles when she's teaching, and then to bring in more just basic science on climate change and say, okay, if we recycle, then there's this much coal or this much energy that doesn't need to be used to go get the fossil fuels out of the ground, but taking that down to a lower elementary level of understanding. So a lot of it's just if we do a good job now, we don't have to worry about them because they take it and run with it themselves.
I think something else that's really important is that we have to learn to recognize where people are. I think one of my favorite proverbs is a Haitian proverb which says, "We see from where we stand." And I know, having come back to Cincinnati after 30 years of living in many different countries, working in different countries, as well as working at the United Nations, has been really difficult in many ways because it's a fairly conservative city. And I have to keep reminding myself that I've had the opportunity to travel to over 40 countries and to see what climate change is doing to people in many areas. But people here have not. So how do you step into their shoes and be able to move them beyond where they are? Yeah. And I use a model of 3 concentric circles. In the center is our comfort zone. We love being in our comfort zone. Everybody's just like us and they think like us, and it makes life very easy. But the second circle is our grace margin. And God is continually calling us out of our comfort zone into our grace margin. Mm-hmm. And so how do we invite people to move beyond where they are? That's the challenge that I think we face. But first, we also have to understand where they are coming from.
Well answered. Thank you very much to both of you.
Bye-bye.